In 1978, Superman made millions of hearts believe that heroes were real. But in real life, many of the actors who appeared in the film had to live in the shadows of illness, addiction, and accidents. Even Christopher Reeve couldn't escape the tragedy of paralysis, while a few others managed to hold on to the Hollywood spotlight. What really happened? Let's uncover the untold truths and honor the legacy they left behind. Let's dive in. Christopher Reeve as Superman and Clark Kent. At the age of 26, Christopher Reeve brilliantly embodied Clark Kent, Superman in the blockbuster Superman, 1978, becoming the immortal image of a perfect hero during the golden age of cinema. The role not only made him a global star, but also typecast him as the Man of Steel, a hidden burden on his rising career. Behind that dazzling spotlight, few could have imagined that a decade later, fate would strike him with the greatest shock of his life. Born on September 25, 1952, in Manhattan, New York, Christopher Reeve was at the peak of his career and enjoying a fulfilling life with his wife, Dana Morosini, when tragedy struck on May 27, 1995. During an equestrian competition in Culpeper, Virginia, his horse suddenly stopped, throwing Reeve forward, his head hitting the ground hard. The accident fractured 2 of his cervical vertebrae, leading to quadriplegia and loss of the ability to breathe unaided. In just one night, the hero of a generation was confined to a hospital bed, completely dependent on machines. Even so, Dana remained by his side without leaving, becoming his only support and the courageous voice that carried his spiritual strength through the following 9 years. Their love, which seemed destined to end in tears, instead became a radiant light during the darkest days of Reeve's life. On October 10, 2004, Christopher Reeve took his last breath at the age of 52 due to heart failure related to complications from a pressure sore caused by paralysis. His net worth at the time of death was estimated at around $10 million. But that number could never measure the spiritual legacy he left behind. At the funeral held at Juilliard, more than 900 people came to pay their respects, including Robin Williams, Meryl Streep, and others who once called him a hero. On his hand when he passed away was still his wedding ring, a symbol of unbreakable love between him and Dana, who would pass away only 17 months later, Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. When Margot Kidder was 30 years old, she breathed life into the character of Lois Lane in Superman, 1978, a sharp, fearless, and captivating reporter at the Daily Planet. With bright eyes and a distinctive voice, Kidder was not only the perfect partner to Christopher Reeve, but also became the standard for countless Loises to come. However, behind that Hollywood smile was a soul that was intense, rebellious, and deeply tormented. Born on October 17, 1948 in Yellowknife, Canada, Margaret Ruth Kidder stepped into Hollywood with the grace of charm and a free-spirited nature. But the limelight couldn't conceal her internal darkness. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at a very young age, a condition that dragged her into the vicious cycle of medication and self-destruction. In 1996, the entire U.S. was shaken when Kidder went missing for several days and was found in a distressed state, hair chopped unevenly, lying in the bushes of a stranger's yard. Though she returned to the public eye with courage, she always carried with her a quiet pain about illness, the pressure of fame, and life stories Hollywood never told. In her final years, she lived a secluded life in Livingston, Montana, surrounded by mountains and the wolves she regularly fed from her back porch. She once said that if she died, just wrap her in a bedsheet and let the wolves take her away. On May 13, 2018, Margot Kidder passed away at the age of 69. The cause was later confirmed as an intentional overdose of medication and alcohol, a death believed to be voluntary, though still controversial, among family and friends. Her net worth was approximately $3 million. In the memories of those who loved her, Perhaps the most beautiful image is of a solitary Margot amidst the Montana wilderness, her hand touching the fur of a wolf, with a smile that was both wild and gentle. Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. At the age of 48, Gene Hackman left a lasting impression with his portrayal of the legendary villain Lex Luthor in Superman, 1978. A cunning, ruthless, and highly intelligent role that directly confronted the symbol of justice, Superman. At the time, Hackman was already a Hollywood veteran, an Oscar winner, and known as one of the greatest tough guys on screen. But no one could have predicted that nearly half a century later, he would enter a final chapter of life that was eerily lonely and shrouded in mystery. Born on January 30th, 1930, in San Bernardino, California, Eugene Allen Hackman once said he was living in a film of his own as his memory began to deteriorate due to Alzheimer's. Years after retreating from the spotlight, Hackman lived in seclusion with his second wife, classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, in a remote mansion in Santa Fe, New Mexico. But in February 2025, tragedy struck. Betsy passed away first on the 11th due to a rare virus, and Hackman, suffering from severe heart disease and advanced dementia, was no longer capable of recognizing or caring for himself. Eventually, Gene Hackman died on February 17, 2025, at the age of 95. His net worth was estimated at around $80 million, but his will, leaving all assets to his wife, sparked controversy, as both died within less than a week of each other. According to data from a pacemaker, both he and his wife had been dead for days before their decomposed bodies were discovered in separate rooms of the house. The image of his body lying silently beside a cane and sunglasses, and Betsy collapsed next to a spilled bottle of pills, evoked a scene of chilling desolation and solitude. After more than 30 years together in silence, their deaths, in a home no one visited, with no surveillance cameras and no relatives nearby, shocked the world. In the memories of friends and family, he wasn't just the cinematic supervillain, but a devoted husband, a complicated yet sincere father, and ultimately, an artist who ended his life quietly, as if he had chosen to fade out like a final movie scene. Marlon Brando as Jor-El. Marlon Brando was 54 when he made a brief but powerful appearance in Superman, 1978, as Jor-El, the biological father of Superman. Although he appeared only in the opening minutes of the film, Brando received a record-breaking salary for the time, demonstrating his immense star power and influence in Hollywood. With sorrowful eyes, a divine demeanor, and a mesmerizing, deep voice, Brando didn't just play an alien father. He seemed to be channeling his own self, a man of brilliance intertwined with tragedy. Born on April 3, 1924, in Omaha, Nebraska, Marlon Brando grew up in a broken family with an abusive father and an alcoholic mother. These childhood traumas shaped his rebellious, defiant, and uncompromising personality early on. Brando became a pioneer of method acting, rising to fame with roles such as Stanley in A Streetcar Named Desire and Terry in On the Waterfront. But off-screen, he was a true bad boy, famous for numerous complicated love affairs, sex addiction, food addiction, and shocking statements. He once declared that he had had homosexual experiences and was not ashamed of it. His family life was a series of tragedies. His son Christian was convicted of murdering his sister's boyfriend, and his daughter Cheyenne committed suicide in despair. These personal disasters, along with countless lawsuits and expensive divorces, left Brando financially strained in his final years. On July 1, 2004, Marlon Brando died in Los Angeles from respiratory and heart failure at the age of 80. Weighing over 300 pounds at the time, he lived reclusively in loneliness and illness, though his net worth still hovered around $20 million. His life was a chaotic symphony of genius, desire, and deep solitude. When Brando said, "I don't care what people think about me," he truly lived that way, breaking every rule, burning every norm, and leaving behind an irreplaceable legacy in the history of cinema. Terrence Stamp as General Zod. At the age of 40, Terrence Stamp struck fear across the DC universe with his portrayal of General Zod, the most dangerous enemy of Superman in Superman, 1978. With a calm demeanor, icy stare, and commanding voice, Stamp not only stunned audiences, but also cemented his status as one of the most memorable villains of that cinematic era. Yet behind those cold blue eyes wasn't just an alien dictator, but a man torn between two worlds, the glitter of cinema and a tormented inner life. Born on July 22, 1938 in East London, Terrence Henry Stamp had once been the lover of legends like Brigitte Bardot, Julie Christie, and Jean Shrimpton, a romantic life so turbulent that tabloids chased his every move. But when Shrimpton left him, Stamp broke down. He vanished from Hollywood, abandoning fame to seek refuge in monasteries in India, immersing himself in meditation and spiritual enlightenment. He said that, at that time, he no longer knew who he was outside the spotlight. Those years of retreat transformed him, marking a strange turning point, from sex symbol to philosophical hermit. Later, he recalled with bitter humor that he had been thrown off the back of the sexual horse after clinging to it for 60 years, and felt relieved. As of 2025, Terrence Stamp has reached the age of 87. He is still alive, still meditating, still wearing the same suit from 1968 as a timeless statement. His net worth is around $10 million, but no number can quantify the enigmatic presence he left in the hearts of viewers. No more wild nights or villainous roles. Stamp now chooses yoga over desire, stillness over chaos. Jackie Cooper as Perry White. Jackie Cooper was 56 when he returned to the public eye once more through his role as Perry White, the hot-tempered yet principled editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet in the Superman 1978 series. With sincere acting and a commanding presence, Cooper didn't just bring a classic supporting character to life, but proved that a child star from the 1930s could endure in a transformed Hollywood. Few knew that when he shouted, "Great Caesar's ghost," he was also carrying a lifetime of hardship, bitterness, and extraordinary resilience. Born on September 15, 1922 in Los Angeles, John Cooper Jr. stepped into cinema before he could even read scripts. From a charming boy in the Our Gang series to an Oscar nomination for Skippy at just 9 years old, Jackie once embodied the American dream. But his childhood was no fairy tale. His biological mother was emotionally abusive, and his uncle, also his director, once threatened to shoot his beloved dog just to make him cry for a scene. After World War II, as his career stalled, Cooper fell into depression and alcoholism. But instead of surrendering, he chose to walk away from Hollywood's spotlight, move to New York, start from scratch, and rebuild everything, from Broadway stages to television, from actor to director, even running a production studio. He once swore never to act again, but returned nonetheless, quietly and courageously. On May 3, 2011, Jackie Cooper passed away in Santa Monica, California, at the age of 88. The cause was determined to be natural causes, and he died peacefully. No scandal, no tragic final moment. His net worth was approximately $5 million. He titled his memoir, "Please Don't Shoot My Dog," not just a nod to his painful past, but a humorous way to forgive. And that is what Jackie Cooper left the world. A life of honesty, bravery, and never-ending growth. Valerie Perne as Eve Teschmacher. At the age of 35, Valerie Perne became a silver screen sex symbol with her role as Eve Teschmacher, the flirtatious yet alluring lover of Lex Luthor in Superman 1978. With a mischievous smile, a stunning figure, and a playful comedic acting style, Perne brought a fresh breeze into a cinematic universe filled with stiff heroes. Though a supporting role, it marked one of her final peaks before her career gradually declined, due to poor choices and a Hollywood that grew increasingly cold toward women past their beauty prime. Born on September 3, 1943, in Galveston, Texas, Valerie Perne was once considered a sensation of the 1970s. She made a major splash as Honey Bruce in Lenny, 1974, earning an Oscar nomination and winning an award at Cannes, a dramatic leap from Las Vegas showgirl to leading lady. But beyond the spotlight came chaotic years, complex relationships with celebrities, drug rumors, and a career that began to derail after Can't Stop the Music, 1980. She once narrowly escaped the Manson family massacre only because of a last-minute shift change, a fateful detail that haunted her. As time went on, Perne faded into obscurity, living quietly in increasingly minor roles and a life constricted by Parkinson's disease, diagnosed in 2015. In 2017, she had to undergo dental surgery due to the side effects of treatment, a former beauty icon now struggling with the most basic functions. As of 2025, Valerie Perne is 82 years old and living in seclusion in Beverly Hills, California. Her net worth is estimated at around $1 million, a modest figure compared to her once dazzling fame. Her life was recounted in the 2020 documentary Valerie, where audiences witnessed a once radiant star gradually consumed by time and illness. Yet despite the tremors of Parkinson's, she still carries a unique grace, the kind only someone who has seen both the summit and the abyss and lived to tell the tale can possess. Jack O'Halloran as Non. When Jack O'Halloran was 35, he sent chills down the spines of audiences worldwide with his portrayal of Non, the giant, mute, and brutal butcher, in Superman, 1978. Standing 6'6" tall, with a blank stare and the face of a lost child hidden behind monstrous strength, O'Halloran didn't need a single line of dialogue to instill fear on screen. But what few people knew was that behind that seemingly emotionless character stood a man who once lived under boxing lights, criminal shadows, and secrets that Hollywood never dared to touch. Born on April 8, 1943 in Philadelphia, Jack O'Halloran grew up under a hidden identity, the illegitimate son of notorious mafia boss Albert Anastasia, founder of Murder, Inc., and one of the most ruthless figures in the American Cosa Nostra. Though he was not publicly raised in the underworld, O'Halloran was drawn early into its web of power and violence, working as an enforcer, guarding underground casinos, and profiting from illegal gambling operations tied to the boxing scene. At one point, he seemed destined to inherit his father's criminal legacy, but internal conflicts, betrayal from associates, and a near-fatal purge forced him into hiding for a time in Boston. That was the turning point. Leaving the underworld wasn't easy. He was hunted, cut off from contacts, nearly left with nothing. But he chose to start over, returning to the stage, turning to film, and finding early success with Farewell, My Lovely, 1975. As of 2025, Jack O'Halloran is 82 years old. He lives quietly, still making appearances at fan events and writing books, including Family Legacy, a controversial memoir about his mafia ties. His net worth is estimated at around $1 million. Not large, but he never chased material wealth. For him, fame comes not from money earned, but from overcoming the ghosts of his past. Ned Batty as Otis. At the age of 41, Ned Batty made audiences laugh and occasionally shiver with his role as Otis, the bumbling, greedy, and somewhat dim-witted right-hand man of Lex Luthor in Superman, 1978. Though a supporting character, Batty brought a unique, subtle charm. He wasn't just comic relief, but the balance between the villain's tension and the hero's nobility. That role marked a highlight in a film career that spanned 5 decades, during which Batty became a familiar face everyone recognized, even if few could name him on the spot. Born on July 6, 1937 in Louisville, Kentucky, Ned Thomas Batty began his career in church choirs before stepping onto the theater stage at 19. He was not the typical movie star, no glamour, no superstar aura, but his down-to-earth honesty made him one of the most dependable character actors in Hollywood. Often typecast in humorous, dopey, or lovable chubby roles, Batty still delivered powerful moments, such as in Deliverance, 1972, or Network, 1976, the latter earning him an Oscar nomination. Though he occasionally expressed frustration at not being offered leading roles, he was never bitter. "I feel sorry for people who have to be stars," he once said. "It's not natural at all." On June 13, 2021, Ned Batty passed away at his home in Los Angeles at the age of 83. The cause of death was kept private but believed to be age-related and due to declining health. His net worth was estimated at around $5 million. Not enormous, but a testament to a tireless career with over 160 film roles. No scandals, no major tragedies. Ned Batty lived and departed the same way he appeared on screen, quietly, steadily, and leaving behind a warm smile with every appearance. Sarah Douglas as Ursa. At the age of 26, Sarah Douglas gave a brilliant performance as Ursa, the ruthless female warrior from Krypton, in Superman, 1978, a role that catapulted her to global fame. With her angular features, piercing stare, and icy aura, Douglas became a female villain icon in the sci-fi genre. Even alongside big names like Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman, she stood out with her dangerous presence and commanding beauty, an iconic performance she never fully escaped throughout her career. Born on December 12, 1952, in Stratford-upon-Avon, Sarah Douglas trained at the National Youth Theatre and Rose Bruford College before pursuing acting professionally. And although she beat out over 600 contenders to land the role of Ursa, the path beyond the spotlight wasn't paved in roses. Hollywood in the 1980s was unkind to strong women like her. Douglas has spoken out about gender discrimination and ageism within the film industry. After Superman 2 and her villainous role as Queen Taramis in Conan the Destroyer, her film career gradually shifted toward supporting roles, TV appearances, or B-list projects, despite her undeniable talent and charisma. As of 2025, Sarah Douglas is 73 years old and remains active in the entertainment industry, from theater and television to voice acting in superhero animated series. She frequently appears at fan conventions, especially events celebrating the Superman franchise, where she is always welcomed as a living legend. Her net worth is estimated at around $2 million, modest compared to the cultural impact of Ursa, but a truthful reflection of a persistent, dignified career that never relied on glitter, but always held integrity. Glenn Ford as Jonathan Kent. When Glenn Ford was 62 years old, he delivered one of the warmest and most emotional performances in Superman, 1978, as Jonathan Kent, the calm, diligent, adoptive father of Clark Kent. Appearing only in the early scenes of the film, his gentle eyes, soft voice, and simple life philosophy left a deep impression, as a reminder that even superheroes need a kind heart to grow. However, behind the Hollywood spotlight, Glenn Ford embodied a stark contrast between his on-screen image as the ideal father and a private life full of contradictions, scandals, and astonishing secrets. Born on May 1, 1916, in Sainte-Christine d'Auvergne, Quebec, Glenn Ford entered cinema with good looks and a natural acting style, quickly becoming one of the most sought-after leading men of the 1940s-1960s. But beyond fame, he became entangled in a life of control and chaos. Ford was notorious for recording all his phone conversations for over 40 years, not just with lovers, but with politicians, celebrities, and close colleagues. The list of those secretly taped stretched from Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan to Frank Sinatra, Lucille Ball, and Ava Gardner. The system wasn't simply to preserve memories. It stemmed from insecurity, jealousy, and an obsession with betrayal. He first installed it to spy on his first wife, Eleanor Powell, suspecting she would uncover his numerous affairs. Eventually, Powell divorced him for infidelity and cruel behavior. Ford was romantically involved with at least 146 actresses, most notably a decades-long on-and-off affair with Rita Hayworth, his co-star in Gilda, 1946. The two remained entangled into the early 1980s, despite having families of their own. He also had relationships with Joan Crawford, Brigitte Bardot, Marilyn Monroe, Judy Garland, and many other stars. Many of these were fleeting flings, leaving behind 4 failed marriages and a reputation as someone incapable of commitment. Outwardly, he appeared polished and dignified. But in personal journals, Ford confessed to feelings of emptiness, repetition, and addiction to conquest, leading to alcoholism throughout the 1950s and 1960s, even as he remained a box office star. Glenn Ford passed away on August 30, 2006, at age 90, after years battling heart disease and circulatory complications. At the time of his death, he left behind an estate worth around $12 million. But what many mourned most was how a once glorious legend had retreated into loneliness and illness. Susanna York as Laura. At the age of 39, Susanna York portrayed Laura, Superman's biological mother, in Superman, 1978. Though she appeared only briefly in flashbacks set on the planet Krypton, her delicate beauty, clear blue eyes, and regal demeanor perfectly captured the image of a noble, intelligent, and self-sacrificing mother. Yet behind the Hollywood lights, Susanna York's real life carried its own quiet sadness, not due to scandals, but because of the painful silence she bore until the very end. Born in 1939 in Chelsea, London, Susanna came from a distinguished background and was raised in an intellectual environment. From a young age, she was passionate about the stage and showed a rebellious spirit. She was once expelled for skinny dipping at midnight at her all-girls school. But that rebellious streak, combined with natural talent, helped her rise quickly as a key figure in 1960s British cinema, making her mark in Tom Jones, 1963, and reaching artistic heights with an Oscar nomination for her role as Alice in They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, 1969. However, within the glamorous world, Susanna York spoke openly about the suffocation and gender bias in the film industry. She was often viewed more as English beauty than a deep-thinking artist, which led her to distance herself from commercial roles and turn toward theater and stage work, where she could fully own her emotions and ideas. At the end of 2010, upon learning she had multiple myeloma, a painful form of bone cancer, Susanna declined chemotherapy. She chose instead to keep performing until the very end, completing her final role in Ronald Harwood's Quartet as a farewell to her art. On January 15, 2011, she passed away at Royal Marsden Hospital at the age of 72. Her net worth was estimated at around $3 million. Mark McClure as Jimmy Olsen. At the age of 21, Mark McClure portrayed the young reporter Jimmy Olsen in the blockbuster Superman, 1978. Staying with the role through all 4 films over nearly a decade, McClure became an indispensable figure alongside Clark Kent, a loyal, innocent friend always curious about everything happening around Superman. In 1978, when Hollywood's spotlight first shined on the superhero world, Mark was the only cast member to keep his role consistently throughout the entire film series, a rare and admirable feat. But before becoming a DC Universe icon, Mark McClure, born March 31, 1957 in San Mateo, California, was just an ordinary boy growing up in a divided and uncertain America. No scandals, no controversies. His life wasn't tainted by darkness. Yet it carried a quiet kind of loneliness. He was stifled by the very success that had come so early. Trapped in the image of Jimmy Olsen, Mark found it nearly impossible to break free from that charming sidekick persona. Leading roles drifted further away, and in the years that followed, he appeared only in brief parts, in Back to the Future, Smallville, Justice League, as if Hollywood only remembered him as a face from the past. As of 2025, Mark McClure is 68 years old. He lives quietly, away from the spotlight, occasionally joining small projects to honor the fans who still remember. No scandals, no noisy legacy, but he leaves behind something else. An unforgettable memory of the kindest, most loyal Jimmy Olsen ever seen on screen. His net worth is estimated at around $1 million, enough to live modestly, yet with pride, in the hearts of those who grew up with the image of Superman. Though they may be gone, the light cast by the Superman, 1978, cast still shines brightly in the hearts of fans. But what do you think? Was it a Hollywood curse, or just the cruel hand of fate? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep uncovering the mysteries behind the silver screen.